Hello, my friends. This is the SPCE 1 year for 2022. It's currently January 19th at 8:15 p.m. 2022. So the main behavior and overall theme of the year for SPCE Virgin Galactic is multiple headwinds pushing the stock down, but there's a prominent high and a trade opportunity at that prominent high. Maybe more than one, but there's at least one so far. Looking at one prominent high here. The trade opportunity is the Ace of Discs, so very lucrative trades here. And then the low for the year is correlated with the Ace of Swords. Ace of Swords is a lot of volatility. You may be revisiting the same low again, or it could be lower lows, but there's going to be quite a few lows. And we have the Magus card at the top, also correlating to a trade, as well as the theme card, which is the cruelty card. So a big push higher to reach the higher highs for the year. That higher high for the year marks a significant opportunity before a sharp sell-off. All right, so we have a big push up, like the top of a range is made higher in January, but then we have a sell-off. We break down through a support level from the January high. We break down through a support, through one support level, meet a second one, bounce along that one, and then we break down further. But we are range bound at the bottom. January's bottom. It looks like we have a year's bottom there, and a trade opportunity in let's say the end of the third week, beginning of the fourth week of January. There's a trade opportunity at that low, and we push higher at that year's low, I should say, January's low, year's low. And we push higher out of that low in the end of January along a diagonal trend line. We break through a support resistance level, meet a second resistance level, and then we pull back to somewhere between those two price levels. And that high, that year's high, the first year's high, we see in early, that rally continues into early February, where we have a year's high correlation as well as a year's trade correlation there. So it looks like opportunity at the end of January to purchase some SPCE, and then an opportunity in early in early February, opportunity to sell SPCE. There's a big move to reach the high, and there's also the high and the lower in close proximity to each other. Looks like, yeah, so the high is very early on. We have a drop to the year's low from the year's high, somewhere in like the second week, and sorry, not somewhere in the second week. The year's low is towards the end of February. So we have a year's low in the end of January, a year's high in early February, a year's low in late February. In the end of February, there's that a failed attempt to break a key resistance level, followed by a sharp a decline through a key support level. We have a bit of a rally into March, but that's like a big move higher. There's a fast, sudden move higher that marks the end of a bit of a rally in early March. And we have a year's high that's in close proximity to a March low. Looks like right around the end of the second week or the beginning of the third week, end of the second week. There's also some sort of decision or a merger of some kind highlighted around the low for March. And there's a significant drop to reach from the high of March to, which is also going to be a year's high, to reach the March low. More rallying, like a significant amount of prominent move higher in the end of March, but then that's an opportunity. It looks, well, I wouldn't say opportunity, but I'm warned that there's also some moving back down the other way. So we have a trade opportunity in the midst of price swings in April. Trade opportunity in the midst of that. We revisit an important crest that was an opportunity around the high for April. We also have a year's high correlator in there for April, and it's in close proximity to an April low, which is also going to be a year's low. So there's a year's low and a year's high in April. Interesting. So we push, looks like we push out of March into April. We reach a year's high, which is the revisiting of that crest and opportunity. It's trade opportunity. And then we fall. There's a sudden sharp dip within a period of volatility off of the low, or off of the high to reach the low. And the low for April is also another low for the year. In the end of April, there's a rally out of that. There's a fast sudden move higher out of that decline to reach the low, which is really going to be, the end of April. There's a fast sudden move higher. It marks the end of a rally out of that low, or the end of a decline. I'm sorry, it marks the end of a decline out of that low. We have another trade opportunity in early May. After that rally continues in early May. Okay, so the year's low, it looks to me like there's a year's low there. It's really 1 year's low between April and May, somewhere around the cusp. And we rally out of that. We successfully make a resistance level new support. Towards the end of the month of May, and that's a big move to reach it. The end of May, there'll be a decline as well. Looks like an opportunity to There's a year's high there. There's a year's high in May. Looks like a year's high in the end of May. We rally out of a low to reach a year's high. We rally out of a year's low in early May to reach a year's high somewhere in the end of May. And then from that we fall a bit, but that's an opportunity, it looks like. Where's the correction? There's a correction. There's a sharp decline in there. Like, there's an opportunity to protect positions or to short or to buy puts there in the end of May, so towards the second half of May. But we rally again in early June to bump along resistance. We break through resistance, bump along resistance. But that's kind of like the overall theme around the high. And then we have a sharp decline due to something that was hidden. As we move into the end of the month, we revisit a support level where we attempt to establish support. A lot of volatility here, guys. There's a trade opportunity, it looks like, on the cusp of June and July between that decline, because in July there's a big push higher to reach a distant resistance level, possibly like make the top of a range a little bit higher. Even though it seems like there's a ton of crazy like headwinds that would push it down, it continues to move higher. The male leader, likely the president, is highlighted around the low. He also highlighted in the S&P 500 in that same month. Looks like there's a year's low for the S&P there. Out of that year's low, we push. There's a year's low correlator here in July, but we have a July high in close proximity to that year's low. And the president is somewhat highlighted around the year's low there, marking a trade opportunity both at the low and then near the high, which will likely be towards the marking a trade opportunity near the end, like the third week of July. Matter of fact, so trade opportunity in roughly the end of the third week of July, the beginning of the fourth week of July, somewhere right around there. Trade opportunity, and it looks like we decline down to a support level, which we bounce along sideways for a bit. There's sideways fluidity going into early August, and there's a low correlator there as well, a year's low correlator there as well. It looks like we sell down through a support level to and then back up above it, and that's how we create the low for August. There's a breakout to reach the high in August. It looks like there's a breakout to reach the high in August, to reach August's high, and that also marks a trade opportunity because we drop sharply from there in the end of August. It looks like we rally higher again in early. We rally higher again in early September, and we revisit the high from October, we revisit the high from August. Again in September, either that or the highs at the end, and we fall sharply at the very end of September into the very end of August into early September. But there's the completion of a bullish trend around the high there for September. It looks like there's a revisiting there. Either that or we rally into that high out of a low in August. But again, from the end of that trend and high or trade opportunity there. It looks like it's possible that low that we had in March is actually around the same price level as the high we have in September, and from that September crest we fall sharply. We don't revisit that crest for quite some time, and we fall sharply back down to whatever the most prominent resistance level was prior to us creating the next highest one. So we come back to like the old main high, which is now a support. We possibly even break through that and reach a year's low in the end of September. There's continued decline. Well, there's a rally out of that low in September into early October, rallying out of that courageously. There's another year's high correlated to the high there for October, and there's a flight to safety off of that high. It looks like 3 failed attempts to break through resistance, followed by a sharp decline to reach the low. And then around the end of the third week of October, rally commences. We see a year's high there towards the end of October. Matter of fact, there's a year's high there the second week of October, and then looks like we do a decline into the third week of October, and then we're rallying back out of that into a year's high again in early November. That early November marks opportunity to position for both sides of the market. There's a very important price level that's highlighted in early November. There's also another low correlator there. All of November, basically. There's a year low correlator in early November, late November, and around the high. So we have a U-shaped dip to reach the low. It'll be a substantial decline, maybe like a J-shaped dip from a high in early November down to a low in late, let's say the roughly the third or to the beginning of the fourth week of November, and that's selling from the high is out of an overbought territory, 80 RSI or higher, down to a low that we see again. We see a low in the third week of November, and then a lower low in the beginning of December. December's low is a year's low. It's lower than the low of November. It's very likely the lowest low for the year. And it looks like we finish. There is a push out of that low in early. Well, there's a year's low in early November. It looks like we revisit that year's low after we push higher. We do a price swing and we fall back down and reach the year's low again, and we revisit that year's low in the end of December. So overall, not a very great year, guys. This is one of my favorite stocks for the long term, and I will likely this is like a stock that I looked at over a 10-year period starting in 2020. It's one of the top stocks for like a 10-year period. I'll likely on the long, I'll probably in my buy and hold account, I'll likely be buying SPCE on dips. In my trading account, I'll follow the information here that I've just gone through. But the following year, 2023, I predict will be hugely bullish. All right, guys, that's pretty much the SPCE one-year reading for 2022. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate the support. Don't forget to like and comment and share with your friends. Pay it forward. You know, that really helps support us, guys. The more eyeballs that see this stuff, the better. So with that said, guys, hopefully it helps you. I know it's been helping a lot of people. Love to hear about it, and I'll see you all later.